One. Good afternoon, wherever you are watching from. Welcome into Hook'em Hoops, brought to you by the Field of 68. I am Jason Conander, joined by Tommy Yarish and Zach Davis. Guys, we have a lot to talk about today. The big news of the week: down goes Texas on Monday night in Las Vegas to Ohio State. Zach, why don't we start with you? Some rapid fire thoughts on Monday night's opener.
So yeah, it was I mean, like where do I start? You felt the fact that Tremont Mark was not there. I mean, we talk about this team, being deep, and it didn't feel deep. Onyema got 5 minutes, but besides that, only eight guys really played. And others, I mean, it didn't feel very deep, and it felt like Arthur Kaluma might have played a couple too many minutes. Caden Shedrick might have played a couple too many minutes. And I mean, you have your bright spots. I know they lost, but Trey Johnson had 29 points. I mean, what was it? 5 for 10 from three. But, Texas shot 7 for 28 from three. So you do the math. Trey goes 5 for 10, 2 for 18 from three for the rest of this Longhorn squad. And we kind of thought that was going to be fixed last year or fixed to this year a little bit. I also feel like that without Tremont Mark on the court, that also might have been affected. But again, shots were being forced. Shedrick took too many shots that needed to be. Hope, I would argue, took too many shots that needed to be. Kaluma definitely took too many shots that needed to be. So, I mean, there's so many things to take away, but the 3-point shooting, and the depth, the lack of depth are two really big factors for me.
Tommy.
Guys, I think we're going to have a lot of fun this year getting to cover Trey Johnson. I mean, this kid is a superstar. Like we said it on the last episode that, this kid's probably going to be the best player to come into Texas since Kevin Durant. And, you obviously don't want to overreact based on one game. And so, it's the opening game of the season. Everybody's still kind of getting used to it. But this is a true freshman who come in. He leads the team in minutes, played 39 in his first ever game. This guy barely touched the bench, which might be another conversation. How sustainable is that? Um, he comes in, he hits 5 threes. But what impressed me the most, guys, we knew coming into this that Trey Johnson was going to get you buckets. He had 2 steals and a block, too. If he can play that well on the defensive side of the ball as well for Texas, that's going to completely change the outlook of how teams approach Trey Johnson. Everybody knows him as a bucket getter. You don't really know him as a great defender, but if he's able to do that on the defensive side of the ball, things are going to go really well. I agree with Zach. I didn't really think it was a great game for Caden Shedrick or Arthur Kaluma. The big issue that I had was 3 turnovers for Arthur Kaluma in 30 minutes. That just can't happen. And then Caden Shedrick goes 4 of 12 from the field. Only 10 rebounds between those two. Kendall Weaver can't be your leading rebounder on a given night. Like, you've got to get those guys into the post. They've got to get boards for you. They've got to be physical. That's why you brought a guy like Kaluma in, and that's what we've been waiting to see from Caden Shedrick. So, obviously it's not like the season's over. I mean, Ohio State shot 50% from three. They hit 14 threes. Some of it I don't even think was bad defense. I think it was just they couldn't miss. So, it's not going to be the end all be all. But guys, if we had said last year that Texas won on the offensive rebound side of things +4, and in the turnover section +5, you would have taken it, and that's good stuff to build on.
I would have taken that for sure. I think my big takeaway was just defensively as a unit, they looked really poor. There was very little cohesion on both sides of the ball, really. I mean, we were talking during the game, and it felt like there were a lot of offensive play calls that Texas wasn't able to fully execute because either someone made the wrong cut or someone took a shot early or the play broke down. And it's, things like that are a little indicative of the start of the season. But when you have a very top-heavy non-conference schedule and you can't afford to lose many games like this, it's frustrating. The other thing is, like, I don't think that anybody anticipated Trey Johnson being Texas's best player objectively on both ends of the court. He posted the best offensive rating and the best defensive rating of the game per Bart Torvik for Texas in his college debut. While I think that's awesome, it definitely is slightly concerning given the amount of talent that they added around him. Arthur Kaluma did not have a strong defensive game. Caden Shedrick did not have a strong defensive game. Kendall Weaver had a great defensive game, but his offensive game is very hard to figure out for me. And we just didn't see a whole lot from Pope or Larry, which were two pretty big ticket point guard ads. So yes, it's early. but the cohesion wasn't there. They weren't really playing like a team. Lots of one-on-one ball. The good Trey Johnson looked awesome. I really loved what I saw out of Trey Johnson. The shot selection will get there. But man, this kid is good. He's got a pure stroke and he can find open looks most of the time. And he really looks polished on both ends of the court, which is great for Texas. You can't view him as a freshman when he's not playing like a freshman. And he almost played the entire game. He played 97% of the minutes. So those were really my big takeaways. Definitely think that the outcome would have been a little different, like Tommy said, the offensive rebounding. If Ohio State misses some of those open looks, and again, you can't let them have open looks, but they were hitting everything in the first half. And if they miss a couple of those, John Mobley doesn't start the game on an absolute, start his career on an absolute heater, then this is probably a different outcome. Because aside from the lack of cohesion on offense and the overall poor defensive effort, they weren't that bad. They moved the ball pretty well for the most part, and they rebounded, and Trey Johnson looked great, and Arthur Kaluma made some shots. I think that we just need to see, Caden Shedrick play a little bit more and better, stay on the court, give better minutes. And yeah, that's really about it. Does anybody have, any final thoughts from the Ohio State game? What do we think this means in the grander scheme of things for the non-conference schedule?
I mean, you brought it up, Jason. Like, are we even sure Trey Johnson was like the best point guard or the best player freshman on the court in that game? Like, it sounds crazy, but John Mobley in a third of Trey Johnson's minutes, 4 for 4 from 3, 14 points. Like, it was I was watching the first half. I was like, who is this kid? Like, looked him up. He's like was called a sniper in high school. I mean, I know that Rodney Terry didn't game plan for him to come out like that and for him to be hitting 35-foot shots or whatever it was. But man, I mean, Ohio State held the lead for 40 minutes. And it was largely due to John Mobley and that 3-possession run he went on where he just didn't miss. But as far as Texas goes, yeah, it's Jason Kent. I was a little disappointed in. I mean, he came in as kind of like a stretch 5 guy, I feel like a bit, and he went 0 for 4, 0 for 3 beyond the arc, and they were like tough shots too. They were like pretty good open looks. And then again, I think the game plan kind of has to change a bit for Texas going forward. I feel like Trey Johnson was trying to do a lot that he didn't need to do, but at the same time, the offense does need to run through Trey. I mean, the guy got 39 minutes, and there were possessions that we were coming back, or Texas was coming back, and then you'd feel like the ball was forced or a shot was forced. Kaluma would do a 360 fadeaway from 12 feet on the sideline. I think you got to run through Trey. I think Rodney Terry has to reevaluate his starting 5. To me, I feel like how you would win a basketball game with this team is Trey Johnson at the 1, and you got Mark and Weaver at the 2 and 3 on the wings, and you kind of have Kent and Kaluma running the 4 and 5, but having them kind of sit outside and just have everyone crash boards, have Trey coming off screens, have Weaver, have Mark cutting. I think the offense kind of needs to be reevaluated because yes, they did rebound well, but I do see it as a trouble in the future. And I mean, it's just got to go through Trey.
I tweeted out during the game, I said, Trey Johnson's got to get a touch on every possession. Like there's anytime that he's on the floor, he needs to touch the ball at least once. He doesn't need to put up every shot, but you need to give him the ball at least once so that defenses can kind of gravitate towards him, and maybe that opens things up. And speaking of opening things up, Texas didn't do themselves any favors in terms of opening things up because they weren't making the extra pass, guys. This is I'm willing to give them time with that and these shot making things and, all that because, one, you've got a new group of guys playing together. This is a heavy transfer class. And, a guy like Trey Johnson being a freshman, these guys are still getting used to playing with one another. Yes, they've had time in the offseason, but this is the first time they've played a team with different colors. So you got to give them time to mesh together in that game environment. And we've seen that it's paid dividends against teams like Colorado and TCU in those close scrimmages. Obviously, that's very different from a real game environment, but nonetheless, it does take time for those guys to mesh, and it takes time for guys to elevate from where they've been. You think about Jason Kent, Julian Larry, where they've come from in a much smaller scale, and now you've got to play with the big dogs in the SEC. So I'm willing to give them time, but I think Texas needs to get Trey Johnson a touch on every possession, and you just got to make the extra pass sometimes, guys. Rodney Terry's mantra for this year is everybody eats. Everybody's not going to eat if you're playing ISO ball on 75% of your possessions. You've got to move the ball around and and with the playmakers that they've got, with the shooters that they've got, if they make that extra pass, they're going to score. The shots will fall. It's just not going to fall if you're taking contested looks and trying to play hero ball.
My last thing on the Ohio State game before we kind of wrap the bow on that is I'm just interested to see how the offense would have looked if Tremont Mark was in there, because I really do think he's their top shot taker this year. Maybe that script changes after what Trey Johnson did on Monday, and I'm sure the staff knows better than everyone knows how good Trey Johnson really is. But I don't think a team like Texas was necessarily planning on a freshman being the top scoring option this year, regardless of how good he is. So I think if Tremont Mark plays, offense maybe looks different. Fingers crossed that it would look a little bit better. But still, making the extra pass, stuff like that doesn't get fixed just from one player being back in the lineup. Okay, Friday, Texas has a very lackluster Division I basketball game. They are playing against Houston Christian, who is currently ranked number 355 in KenPom. So they are a bottom 10 team in the country. Last season, they went 6-23, and they did not pick up their first win against a Division I opponent until January 13th, and that was against Texas A&M Commerce, who is the only Southland team ranked lower than them in KenPom. So these guys are bad, and they don't return anyone from last year for the most part. So fingers crossed, anything can happen in college basketball, especially, these weird bye games coming off a road trip, Las Vegas. You hope the team's not distracted. Maybe they are. I don't know. We're not in the locker room. But this is a game where I'm going to start by saying, stay healthy. I don't want to see the starters out there after the under 12 of the second half. I don't care if Trey Johnson's going for a freshman record or if Tremont Mark's going for 40 ball. I don't care. This shouldn't matter to anyone. Staying healthy and somehow increasing the net ranking and KenPom ranking from this game is the most important thing. And the easiest way to do that is just by playing everyone in the first half, running your offense. Everyone eats. They should be up by 20. Does anyone have any prevailing thoughts on this game? It's not much of a showdown to preview. It's just a game that's happening on Friday.
I want to learn. Oh, Tommy, you go ahead.
No, you got it, Zach.
All right. I just want to learn a lot. I want to learn not a lot. I want to learn more about the guys on the team, and I'm not talking about the starters, but also where was Devin Pryor last week? On Monday, I thought he was going to have a big impact.
He was injured. He was injured.
Oh, he was injured. Okay, there we go. Is he playing on Friday?
Hopefully,
we'll find out.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, this team brings Texas has 6 transfers and 4 freshmen, and we saw a highlight of them, but with it probably going to sway in Texas's direction for 40 minutes, Trey Johnson can kind of sit the bench a bit, and we can kind of learn more about these transfers. It'll be nice to see them in Moody too. I'll be there. So, yeah, that's really all I got about it. You said Bill Self's son plays on the team. Nice to see him.
There is a Self on the team.
Okay.
And he's a transfer. I can't tell. Bill Self seems to have many kids. I swear that he's had more than one kid walk on at Kansas. So Tommy, why don't you give your thoughts really quick while I check on that?
Hold on, I'm doing research as to whether or not that's actually Bill Self's son.
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I don't think so. It says his son's name is Tyler.
Wow.
We got Nathan Self on the other side. This is a game that Texas played last year. It was their 9th game of the season. They won 77-50. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. They should win this game. The line in that game was 33.5. Fellas, there's not even a line for this game this year. Texas needs to win this game by 35 to 40 points. If they don't, it's going to be because it's a lot of the younger guys playing. And if that's the case, then I would understand. I wouldn't hate if Tremont Mark's injury is something where it can get even a tiny bit worse if he re-aggravates it.
Yep.
Don't play him. There's
Yep.
no need to play him.
Yep.
Just let him sit. And nobody, people might get upset with that. I won't. And you see the rationale behind that. I'm with Jason. Maybe after the 8-minute timeout in the first half, just pull them. Just pull them. This will be a great game for guys like Jamie Vincent, who was a late transfer, not transfer, excuse me, a late reclass, I believe,
Yep.
to get some run. Devon Pryor, if he's healthy, this will be great for him. Malik Presley, coming over from Vanderbilt, back in his hometown. I think that'd be a really cool moment for him and his family, getting him some playing time in his first game back in the Austin area. Man, Preston Clark should have like 15 minutes in this game. That's how bad Houston Christian is. No offense to Preston Clark, of course, but like that's the type of minutes that we should be seeing in this game because Texas should be running away with it. You let Trey Johnson get his, you let these guys try to continue to mesh together, but it really should come down to you just take care of business and get out of there healthy.
I'm going to say what I want to see the most. I want to see Kendall Weaver score more than 15 points. That's what I want to see. I want to see him take shots.
Sorry, go ahead. Do you finish that thought? Then I got something for y'all.
I want to see him take shots. I want to see him get open looks. I want to see that offensive game that we heard about when he transferred in here because he was a good shooter statistically by the metrics. Like he was a good shooter his freshman year at UTA, and he just doesn't take open shots. I mean, when he musters up a look, most of the time it actually goes in, but he just doesn't look like a confident shooter at all. Tommy?
I got a question for you guys. You just got to tell me if you're seeing what I'm seeing. I'm going to preface this by saying I love Kendall Weaver. I think he's a fantastic player, and he's going to be this year for Texas. He's going to be very important. But when he has the ball in his hands on the offensive side of the floor, at times he looks like a deer in headlights. He'll lose his handle. It seems like he's trying to go too fast. And he's a very fast player, so it makes sense. But he'll lose his handle, he'll slip, he'll, have to make some acrobatic circus-esque move to regain possession of the ball. And sometimes that leads to, sloppy plays, bad passes, bad shots. Are you guys seeing that too? Or am I just imagining things here? Am I just nitpicking?
No, I saw that. I think, yeah, I think we saw that last year too. He plays, it's just how he plays, and it benefits on defense and it can hurt him on offense. He's not a downhill. He hasn't been a downhill kid at UT. He's good in transition, but when he's trying to attack, especially a guy like Bruce Thornton or like very like high level point guards in Division I basketball, it's yeah, ball could bounce off his foot. I mean, we saw that a couple times, but then he hits the pay dirt, and everyone's like, "Wow, that guy's sick." And I think that's just his game. The reason I love Kendall Weaver is not like I don't even look at him on offense. The ball's not it's not going through him on offense. But on defense, man, he makes plays, and that's why he gets minutes and like plays. So that's what I think I mean, as much as his offensive game has been struggling and his 3-point shooting and what looks to be might be his confidence, I mean, you need him on defense.
Yeah, I mean, really, like the only Texas player, amazingly, who played better than him on defense by the numbers on Monday night was Trey Johnson. And when you consider that most of the time Kendall Weaver's guarding the ball, I think that's pretty impressive and pretty significant and should get him on the court a lot. All right, I'm ready to roll into predictions for this episode or for this game before we roll into the final segment here. I've got Texas by, let's go 45. I think that they're going to win this one 95-50. I think they're going to be mad. I think everyone's going to eat. My prediction for this game is that 13 players score a field goal.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I think they win it by like 40. I think 40 is a safe number. I hope Jamie Vincent has a big game. I hope he has a big game because he is a guy who naturally throughout the course of the season, guys are going to get banged up. And Jamie Vincent's their biggest player. He's their tallest player. So it might come down to a situation where Jamie Vincent needs to get some minutes in an important time. And it starts here. It starts here. And I hope Zarek O'Neal has a big game too, because I'm a big fan of Zarek.
I'm gonna go 100. Moody Center gets triple digits in their first home opener and 100 points, and let's go 50-60. somewhere in there, probably 50 to 40 point win. I think Texas will shoot 40 to 50% from three. I think it's going to be raining.
Please, please,
They're putting up
please.
120 points in that
That's
case.
Yeah,
yeah,
please.
that's my prediction. I think they're going to have some fun, and I'm also rooting for it because I want this to be a shooting team.
Yeah.
I like those predictions. I hope we didn't curse them by doing a
Yeah, now they're
prediction.
gonna shoot like
Predictions
12%
block.
from three.
Yeah, against a basically D2 team. Maybe I shouldn't even say that if I don't want to jinx them, but whatever. All right, we're going to do a quick little SEC rapid reaction. Not every team has played at the time of recording this episode, so we're going to omit the 3 teams who are playing on Wednesday night. Monday night, kind of went the way that we thought. Maybe A&M lost to UCF, a shorthanded UCF. That stood out to me. South Carolina, yes, they were a 6 seed last year. No, this is not the same team, but they still lost to North Florida. God, that can't really happen. Missouri hasn't won a game in the year 2024 yet. They're the last power conference team waiting for their first win this year. And then the last thing that really stood out to me was Vanderbilt winning by 40. That's the team that people have started to talk about in the late stages of the offseason. Not Jerry Stackhouse. I got to get it out of my head that he's their coach. Mark Byington listed every single player on that roster as a point guard. And honestly, they played some pretty great positionless basketball on Monday night. You know, from my box score watching the highlights that I saw on Instagram, they looked pretty good. And that's a veteran-led team. And, you know, when you have 4 guys scoring in double figures for a team that used to win single-digit non-conference games every single year, no matter what, that's a big win. Your guys' thoughts?
Fellas, is Florida being talked about enough this year?
No.
Are they?
No.
Are they? I mean, look, they had an home opener. They probably played it closer than it needed to be, but chop, chop, chop. I mean, come on, they got a Jewish guy coaching their team. How can I not be more bought into this program? But Todd Golden, I think, is weirdly a very underrated coach in college basketball. He took San Francisco, I believe, they lost to Murray State, if I can remember correctly. And then
that's a tough job at San Francisco.
Dude, when else have we talked about San Francisco in our lives? And then at Florida, he had an NIT appearance his rookie year as head coach, and then in the second season went to the round of 64. Also lost in the first round, but I mean they had 2 guys score double digits, and they're ranked, and no one's talking about it because the SEC has so many good programs. But they went 6th in the SEC last year, and you know. I almost enjoy watching them more than I enjoyed watching UCF storm the court on the opening night, but that's just my opinion.
Can we talk about that? Like, is Texas A&M a court storming team now, or field storming? Like South Carolina stormed the field when they beat A&M. I get they're a top 10 team, but it's not like Texas A&M is a powerhouse football team program.
we're talking about the same student body who claimed they were national champions after
this is
not
very
winning
true.
a single Power 5 game in the regular season.
Yeah, Texas A&M, I get it's a top 15 win, and it's just, a program that, has been needing a win, but it's Texas A&M, guys. Like, and that's no disrespect again. Like I said in the opening show, I like Buzz Williams a lot. I think Wade Taylor's going to have a big year this year. They have no business being the 13th best team in the country. They have no business being the number 13 team in the country. I know Jason, that's your team, and I'm sorry to do that to you, but okay, it's not your team, but
not my team.
No, my bad. That's worded incorrectly. But the in your prediction show, yeah. I hate to do that to you, but they have no business being up there. Man, aside from that, I'm with you on Florida, Zach. I love this Florida team. Elijah Martin's a baller. He's got a great game. And then, aside from that, I felt like it was kind of business as usual. I mean, Asia Noel is going to be a fantastic player for Georgia. Georgia's going to suck, but Asia Noel won't. So that's going to be a really fun player to watch. Not quite. I don't think you'll have like an Anthony Edwards type impact on Georgia, but it'll be similar in the sense of like you talk about them a little bit more than you would have had he not been there.
Yeah, that's the last point that I really had was some of the freshmen in this conference are going to be fantastic. Newell, who you mentioned, I thought that what's his name, the guard from Alabama, he cracked their starting lineup. Let me look right now. LeBaron Philon, he looked fantastic on Monday night against UNC Asheville, which is a perennial contender in their conference. Just some of the freshmen in this conference, man. I mean, Cam, former Texas commit Cam Scott, he's going to play a lot this year for South Carolina. He had 21 minutes off the bench on Monday night, even though they lost. And so, just some of the freshman talent in this conference is going to be very exciting to watch, led by none other than Trey Johnson after the show that he put on Monday night. And I know we're all looking forward to seeing how he follows it up. But to just recap a couple of our points for tonight, we're also hoping that Texas can move the ball a little more. Everyone eats, play some team defense, stay healthy, and get a little bit of an identity on offense. That'll recap today's episode of Hook 'em Hoops. As always, subscribe to the Field of 68 for more college basketball content. For Tommy Yarish and Zach Davis, I'm Jason Conander. We hope to be back with you guys soon, recapping and previewing more Texas basketball.